क्रमिष्यता इमान् सुपेशः प्रधान्यतो यान् दृशामनान्ति लीलावतारपुरुषस्य भूम्नः अपि यतं कर्णकास्य शोषान् अनुक्रमिष्यता इमान् सुपेशान् प्रधान्यतो यान् दृशा अमनान्ति लीलावतारपुरुषस्य भूम्नः अपि यतं कर्णकषयशोषान् अनुक्रमिष्यता इमान् सुपेशान् Thank you. Word for word translation. Pradanyata, chiefly. Yan, all those. Rishe, O Narada. Amananti, worship. Leela, pastimes. Avataran, incarnations. Purushasya, of the personality of Godhead. Bhumna, the Supreme. Apiyatam, in order to be relished by you. Karna, ears. Kashaya, foul matter. Soshan, that which evaporates. Anukramishye, shall state one after another. Te, they. Ima, as they are in my heart. Supesha, all pleasing to hear. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. O Narada, now I shall state, one after another, the transcendental incarnations of the Lord, known as Leela avatars. Hearing of their activities counteracts all foul matters accumulated in the year. These pastimes are pleasing to hear and are to be relished. Therefore, they are in my heart. Purport. As it was said in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, Verse 8, one cannot be fully satisfied by hearing unless and until one is given a chance to hear of the transcendental activities of the Lord. So Brahmaji is also trying in this verse to stress the importance of narrating the transcendental pastimes of the Lord as He comes and manifests Himself here on the surface of the material planets. Every living entity has a tendency to hear pleasing messages, and as such almost every one of us is inclined to hear news and talks broadcast by the radio stations. But the difficulty is that no one is satisfied at heart by hearing all those messages. The cause of such dissatisfaction is the incompatibility of the message with the innermost stratum of the living soul. This transcendental literature is especially prepared by Srila Vyasadeva to give the utmost satisfaction to the people in general by narration of the activities of the Lord, as instructed by Sri Narada Muni to Srila Vyasadeva. Such activities of the Lord are principally of two varieties. One concerns the mundane manifestation of the material creative force, and the other deals with his pastimes in the form of different incarnations in terms of the time and place. There are innumerable incarnations of the Lord, like the waves of the river flowing constantly in and out. Less intelligent persons take more interest in the creative forces of the world in the material of the Lord in the material world, and being disconnected from their relationship with the Lord, they put forward many theories of the creation in the name of scientific research. The devotees of the Lord, however, know well how the creative forces work concurrently by the action and reaction of the material energy of the Lord. Therefore, they take more interest in the transcendental activities of the Lord as He incarnates Himself on the surface of the material world. Srimad Bhagavatam is the history of such activities of the Lord, and people who take interest in hearing Srimad Bhagavatam clear their hearts of accumulated mundane filth. There are 1,001 rash. Is it rash or trash? Anyway, 1,001 rash literatures on the market. But one who has taken interest in the Srimad Bhagavatam loses all interest in such filthy literatures. Sri Brahmaji is thus attempting to narrate the principal incarnation of the Lord so that they may be drunk by Narada as transcendental nectar. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purpose of the second canto, 6th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Purusha Shukta Confirmed. Thus ends. That's it. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Cham He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Shute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatirubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So we have just recited the last verse of this chapter, Purusha Shukta confirmed. And as we read through this chapter over the past few weeks, we saw there were various descriptions here. I mean, Brahmaji stating what is the universal form of the Lord composed of, and then he progresses towards. This was all in relation to the question that Narada Muni asked Brahmaji, that are you the cause and effect of this world, because I only see you? And then Brahma deflects that by saying that no, it's not me, it's actually the Supreme Lord, the origin of all, who is behind all of this. And he systematically explains, he starts off with the universal form, then he moves on to the theory of cause and effect, and then towards the last few passages or the purports of this chapter, he says, even though there is so much of information, but even I, who is the first created being of this universe, cannot know the Lord in full. Because the Lord is unlimited and He is inconceivable. So that separates us from Him. We as jivas, the minute part and parcel of the Lord, and the Lord is, infinite. Anything we can think of, no matter how great or how whatever amazing things we may do, we should never forget that the potency comes from the Lord. So, he then, in this final verse, he concludes by saying that I will now describe the transcendental incarnation of the Lord known as Leela avatars, and hearing of the activities counteracts all foul matters accumulated in the year. So now when we start the next chapter, we'll see that he'll describe the different avatars that come, to this prakat, so there's two terms here, aprakat and prakat. So aprakat is unmanifest and prakat is manifest. So whatever we see with our eyes, with our current senses, that's prakat. So the Lord comes to this planet, He displays pastimes and then winds up His pastimes and goes, and the same pastimes are happening elsewhere. So, but to us, to our limited vision, to limited perception, we only see, we are not able to see them with our mundane senses, but we can appreciate them only if we develop a loving service attitude towards the Lord. So, I wanted to speak a bit about, there are many beautiful points that are being discussed here in this purport, but most importantly, where it concludes is the glory of Srimad Bhagavatam. And if you remember, the first canto, the first chapter, the second verse, how does it go? Dharma projita kaitavo. It continues on, but the gist of the verse is that Bhagavatam rejects all cheating religion, or any religion that's materially motivated, or when it says religion, it doesn't merely just refer to what we know as religion today, like Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, and so many isms. All of them, to some extent, speak of surrender to the Lord, or speak of unalloyed devotional service to the Lord, but nevertheless, the messages that are being spoken there are, to some extent, mixed. And in that first paragraph of that purport, of that translation, there's a very powerful statement that's being discussed, and that is, the highest truth is reality distinguished for the welfare of all. Just 2 days ago, I saw on Facebook, our Happy Jiva Facebook page had a post, and this was the post. The highest truth is reality distinguished for the welfare of all. So Bhagavatam at its very beginning makes it very clear on what the reader should expect in the coming chapter, the coming verses. And what will, a lot of time when we open a book, or we start reading a book, we read through the first few pages, and a lot of times we still don't know what is this book got to offer us. And we read through again, and we come to the middle chapters, and then we see, oh, okay, maybe this is what the book will say. And then in the end, there's something totally different. But Bhagavatam doesn't waste any time in giving us what to expect in this book. And that is unalloyed, pure, devotional service. Anywhere you read in the Bhagavatam, you will just see everything is pointing to Krishna. Everything. In fact, if you, in Canto 2, verse 3, Canto 2, chapter 3, verse 10, there's a very famous verse there. Akama, sarvokama, mokshakama dharadi, tivrena bhakti yogena. Let me see here. Always get past the first. Yeah, that's pure devotional service. Yep, that's actually Purusham. Yep. Yep, yajeta Purusham. So, akama sarvokama mokshakama dharadi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta Purusham param. A person who has broader intelligence, whether he be full of all material desire, without any material desire, or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the Supreme Whole, the personality of Godhead. So, the Bhagavatam clearly points to Krishna, or clearly points to pure devotion service in every aspect. Whatever we may be, it takes us there. And Srila Prabhupada knew this, that Bhagavatam is the panacea cure for all the suffering of this, for everyone in this material world. In fact, just yesterday was the day that, as per the Tithi, anyone know what it was? Srila Prabhupada departing for the West. So, and it was an interesting point there that I didn't know of it, that I came to know of yesterday, that when Srila Prabhupada was translating his Bhagavatam, he only finished translating and publishing the first 2 cantos. And it is said that once that was done, he knew he had the ammunition to now go to the West. So when he goes to Srimati Morarji to beg for, a passage on the steamship, this conversation was highlighted to Sant Dandavats, that she told him, why don't you finish your Bhagavatam here and then go? And he said, no, I have to go. That was Srila Prabhupada's mood. He knew that Bhagavatam is the only cure for all our suffering. So much so that when someone asked him, Swamiji, you are going to the West? He said, no, it is the Bhagavatam that's going to the West. I am just accompanying the Bhagavatam, because the Bhagavatam can't go alone, I am accompanying the Bhagavatam. So, we should understand that that's Prabhupada's innermost desire, to give the Bhagavatam to everyone, because he knows, and we should also, by own conviction, come to that platform realizing that Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. And in fact, I'm not making it up, but there's a chapter here. The last chapter of this canto says Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. So, it says when we hear the Bhagavatam, all foul matters accumulated in the year are eradicated. Srila Bhakti says, I'm sure we've all heard Prabhupada said, even if someone just touches the book or just reads one word of this book, his or her life will be transformed. His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur once in Dhaka, Bangladesh, spoke on the first verse of the Bhagavatam for months. Just imagine if we were to give a class on that same verse for 2 days, we'll be scratching our heads. But yes, Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur speaking on the same verse for many months. And when someone asked him, he said, one can go on glorifying or speaking on just one word of the Bhagavatam for eternity For as long as Anantashesh, it is unlimited mouth is not yet exhausted, the glory, speaking in the glories of Krishna. So we can similarly go on speaking on for eternity if we have even a slight bit of realization. So what does that tell us? That this Bhagavatam is actually transcendental. It does not belong to this mundane material concept of whatever we are accustomed to. And yes, we have some inspiration because we see that the disciples of Prabhupada, or the followers of Prabhupada, who've undertaken so much of risk and trials just to give this Bhagavatam to us. We see this in the lives of many such devotees who preach behind the iron curtain, that they had this one conviction: only if they got this message of the Bhagavatam to the people will their lives change. And we could see clearly that this happened in one country or in a block of countries where the whole government collapsed. I wouldn't name this here, but I hope we all know that. And this was by the hard work or by the undeterred determination of those devotees who made it a point to give this to people. So now, here we see this conversation between Brahma and Narada. And earlier on, in the first canto, we see a similar conversation between Narada and Srila Vyasadeva. When Narada speaks, it's chapter number 5, and this is what's being mentioned here in the first part of the purport, as it is said in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.8. One cannot be fully satisfied by hearing unless and until one is given a chance to hear of the transcendental activities of the Lord. So, Srila Prabhupada writes in this purport that whatever we may be accustomed to hearing of this world, it may sound pleasing to us at first, but it doesn't, in its truest sense, it doesn't satisfy our soul. It doesn't, because it's incompatible to our constitutional position. So whatever we may find satisfaction or whatever we may find happiness within this world, when we hear of something or when we read something, keep in mind that it'll just be short-lived. It won't give us eternal benefit. And that's the same despondency that Srila Vyasadeva had if you see the first canto, where he compiled all these literatures. He compiled, the Vedas, the Puranas, the different histories, the Mahabharata. Despite writing such an extensive body of literature, he felt that he hadn't achieved what he wanted to achieve, and he was despondent. And to his rescue comes Sri Narada Muni. And Narada Muni within an instant knows what the problem is. And he asks Vyasadeva, why are you feeling so despondent? And Vyasadeva explains what he's just done. And Narada says, because you have not glorified Krishna directly in any of the works that you've done, that is why you are feeling incomplete. And he goes on to say that people, because of their conditioning, have a tendency to enjoy. And you have furthered that enjoying propensity by providing them means to do so in the name of religion. So if we refer to certain sections of the Vedas, it is actually said that, I may get this percentage off, but I think 95 or 98%, I don't know the exact percentage, but it's over 90% of the Vedas deal with karma kanda, or basically it speaks about what can you do to get a better position in the future or right now. So you perform certain fruitive activities, or you do this, or you perform these sacrifices, this is what you get. Only a very, very insignificant portion of it directly speaks of pure devotional service. So Narada Muni is in one sense chastising Vyasadeva, that what have you done? Because you haven't glorified Krishna enough, that's why you're feeling that sense of incompleteness. So he says, now I bless you that you will be empowered to narrate the pastimes of the Lord, which will be the cure for all fallen souls in this age of Kali Yuga. So Vyasadeva then takes on that instruction to his heart. He meditates and he sees the Lord's pastime, and then he goes on and translates, or he puts down what he's seeing in what we know is the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Narada Muni then goes on to say that who he was in his previous birth. He was the son of a maidservant. And during the 4 months of the rainy season, which if we go to India now, that's what we'll see. Obviously we can't go now because of COVID, but in these 4 months, his mom they were very blessed to have the association of some saintly personalities, sadhus, who came and gave their association. And his mom would cook prasad for them, and this boy would be serving them prasad. And he said that just by serving them and honoring their remnants, and most importantly, hearing them speak on the pastimes of the Lord, transformed my heart. So a lot of times, we may say, when we come across someone and they'll ask us, I'm feeling sick. I had a cold, or I had a runny nose, or I had a headache, and we'll tell them, take this medicine. We may say that based on, let's say, if we have heard someone say that they had a cold or a headache, and then they took that medicine, it helped them. We may tell them, take this and it'll help you. But how much more would our conviction be if we ourselves were sick with that same condition, and we took this medicine, it cured us? And if we were to tell them, that would be so much more convincing to that person rather than saying it on the basis of a third person. So similarly, Narada, because he has experienced that bliss, he has experienced that transformation within himself, that he is able to convince Srila Vyasadeva that this is what will work. Please speak directly on the pastimes of the Lord, and speak about the different topics of the Bhagavatam, and which we will see towards the end. It talks about the different topics of the Bhagavatam, where in that same chapter, Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. So this verse here is basically leading us to the next chapter, which talks about the incarnations of the Lord. And just 2 days ago, we celebrated the appearance of Lord Balaram. Obviously, we understand that Lord Balaram is an expansion of the Lord. There's no difference between Krishna and Balaram. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he accepts our worship, he accepts our service, and Sri Balaram is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he teaches us how to serve. And we see, now when we read the Bhagavatam, what do we expect? Right? What should we expect? Obviously, I said earlier on that it points to Krishna. But it actually, the message that the Bhagavatam gives is that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, and we are his eternal servants, and it's our constitutional position to serve him. And we see the stories of the devotees. It's not that we just see, a lot of times, when we see, we read in newspapers or in journals success stories, or whatever it may be. Bhagavatam is also giving us success stories of certain devotees. These were the different devotees. This is where they started off. This is where they stumbled. And once they met either the Lord appeared to them directly, or they came in touch with a representative of the Lord. This is what they did, and this is how they achieved success. So that's what the Bhagavatam tells us. It gives us that hope that no matter how fallen we may be, if we just simply follow in the footsteps of these devotees, we will be assured success. And Bhagavatam does an expert job of just dismantling a false ego. It tells us that we are not, a lot of times when we read a lot of motivational quotes or books, it somehow, inflates a false ego that, you can do it. You have the, you have the power to change the world. Yeah, but I can't even control the blinking of my eye, but I can have the power to change the world. But Bhagavatam clearly says here that if you just simply engage in the service of, we have Shri Radha Gopinath and the pure representatives of the Lord, our life will be a success. And we see our acharyas living, who are the embodiments of this very same principle. So we're speaking of Balaram, that how Balaram just loves, his only objective, you may say, is to serve Krishna. And Balaram, each of us have a certain a unique relationship with the Lord, which are grouped under 5 primary rasas. So Balaramji, when he comes, or Balaramji expands himself as all 5 rasas. In the sense of neutrality, he expands as the Lord's paraphernalia, as the Lord's dham. So this very, we may be sitting at 180 Falcon Street, which is a piece of land in Australia, but actually we should understand this is an expansion of Balaram. When we step on it, we should understand Lord Balaram is actually pleased. He is ecstatic to see devotees come and glorify Shri Radha Gopinath. So Balaram is expanding himself. That's in the sense of neutrality. In the sense of servitude, he's always engaged as Krishna's service, as Ananta Shesh. He's providing all sense of comforts to Krishna. In the sense, in the rasa of friendship, he's always playing as Krishna's friend. He's always accompanying him, as when he goes out to graze the cows. He's always, as friends do, they tease each other. They'll play sports. So he's always there with Krishna. He's always looking after him. And in the sense of Vatsalya rasa, in the mood of, in that paternal mood, he's always making sure that Krishna is always looked after. Whenever it's Krishna's birthday, he tells Krishna, Krishna, it's your birthday today, you're not supposed to go and play. Whenever Krishna eats dirt, he goes and tells Mother Yashoda that Krishna ate dirt. He's always, you can say in one sense, what do you call that? What do you call it? Who spoils the party? I can't get that. No, someone, who you're doing something and friend just comes and ruins it because what you're doing is wrong. I mean, in one sense, but he's always complaining. But anyway, Balaramji always has Krishna's best interest at heart. And in the Madhurya Ras, he expands himself as Ananga Manjari, as the younger sister of Srimati Radha Rani, always facilitating the pastimes of Shri Radha and Krishna. So we see here that Balaram, through his own example, even though he's the Supreme Lord, he's teaching us that how we should serve, that how we should be eager to serve. So when we read the Bhagavatam and we'll read these different incarnations, we should understand that our only aim in life should be to serve Krishna, and that can come in many different ways. And just because I would like to conclude with this, is that we are just yesterday was the day that Srila Prabhupada departed for the West. And if you read the Lilamrita, which I highly recommend to all the devotees and all the viewers who are watching it, that please take time off your schedule to read the Lilamrita. Understand Srila Prabhupada's mood. We may come to the temple and we may see, a magnificent facility. We have everything at our, for our benefit. We have the books, we have the devotees, we have the prasad, we have Shri Radha Gopinath here, but we don't realize the sacrifice that Srila Prabhupada made just for us. In fact, just this morning before coming to the temple, I was reading on Dandavats, just a small excerpt that's on that the interaction between Srila Prabhupada and Srimati Morarji. And in that, Srila Prabhupada is begging. I mean, he's begging not Sumati Morarji, but the assistant of Sumati Morarji. And he's telling him that please say these words to Sumati Morarji for her to grant me a ticket. Please tell her that I'm going to the West just to deliver the Srimad Bhagavatam. I've got no other service, I've got no other intention to go to the West. And the assistant was, being the wire medium, he would go to Sumati Morarji, and Sumati Morarji just like, no, that's not a good proposal. He's an elderly person. He is not going to survive in the US. It's going to be brutal. And then Srila Prabhupada asked for a personal interview. And then when he goes for a personal interview, when he goes to see Sumati Morarji personally, she just says, you are like my own father. How can I let my father go alone to the West? And Srila Prabhupada just says, please, he pleads her. And then Sumati Morarji says, okay, bring me your P form, which is like an equivalent of a visa declaration or something, and I'll fill it out, I'll get I'll get all the arrangements done. So now, what can we do? Right? We all have a debt that we owe Srila Prabhupada. Now obviously that debt can't be repaid in full, but we can do something. And again, towards the end we read how this verse is speaking the glory of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Distribute Srimad Bhagavatam. Give Srimad Bhagavatam to others. This month we are celebrating the month, or we're heading towards Bhadra Purnima. And some devotees have very kindly agreed to sponsor a set of Srimad Bhagavatam. That's wonderful. They are, they're all sacrificing whatever they have to some extent to please Srila Prabhupada. But I would say, take the next step forward, sponsor Srimad Bhagavatam and find a recipient for Srimad Bhagavatam. Find someone that will want Srimad Bhagavatam. And even better, once you find that person, cultivate that person to become a follower of Srimad Bhagavatam. In that way, all of us will actually please Srila Prabhupada. Just by, we may just sponsor it and just, it can be to some extent a bit impersonal. Okay, I've sponsored, that's it, I've done my duty. Good. But if we just take that extra step of giving that Srimad Bhagavatam to someone who will benefit or whom we know that doesn't have it, and cultivating them to mold their lives as per the instruction of Srimad Bhagavatam, that will be a complete success. So that's something that will be a little token of our appreciation for what Srila Prabhupada has done for us. So I think my time is up. I will end here if anyone has any question or comment. Begging, yeah. Beggars? Yes, yes. 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 Actually, I remembered once a Srila Prabhupada disciple said this. I think he was a book I think maybe Vijay Prabhu too. I don't know who it was. And he said that the only reason I keep doing what I'm doing is because of Krishna's promise in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. What is this? Those who will, it's 1866, right? Those who share this message become more dear to me. I'll say this. Yes. Which one? Yes, yanacha tashma manusheshu kaschin me priya kritama bhavita na cha me tasmad anya priya tarobhuvi. 18.69. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. So that's the only. He said that's the only reason why we. He's like, I was, or we are doing what we're doing, because this is the only way to get Krishna's mercy. In fact, just 3 weeks ago, when His Holiness Devamrita Swami was speaking on to some devotee on Facebook, can't remember, I think it was about outreach, but anyway, it was various topics, and he said that he himself was the production manager of the BBT, where he was in charge of producing, as Prabhupada would finish the translation, then he would, he would be overseeing the whole, publication, the printing, and then the whole, until the book actually comes out in its manifest form. But he realized, obviously, after Prabhupada departed, that the production wouldn't happen at that same pace that it was happening. That the only way to get that mercy is to, Prabhupada said two things: I take the dust of the feet of those devotees who preach in the communist countries and the devotees who preach to the in the Islamic countries. So he said that's why he took it, that this is the only way, this is the express way to Godhead. He said, for us, we just saw that as, okay, this is Prabhupada just opening the door, and this is our way to get in. And they took up that service, and then obviously, as Manara Ghosh was saying, that we will, when we beg, and as Krishna says, beggars will often be refused. When we beg, when we request people to somehow or the other make Krishna as their object of service, it can be quite purifying. But Krishna is pleased, and because Krishna is pleased, that's our Srila Prabhupada is pleased, Srila Radha Gopinath is pleased, and we see that as our, to some extent, our success. Right? Thank you. Grantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.